house was smaller than the listing suggested, but Daniel didn't mind. After the year he'd had, even a cramped cottage at the edge of a forgotten village felt like a blessing. The moving truck pulled away, leaving him alone with the quiet, a deep, heavy quiet, the kind that seemed to swallow sound rather than hold it. He tested it by clearing his throat. No echo, not even the faintest return. Strange, he thought, but exhaustion softened the edges of his curiosity. He carried the last box inside, shut the door, and let the silence settle around him like dust. The cottage smelled faintly of old wood and something else, something metallic. He assumed it was the pipes. The place was old enough that the walls bowed slightly, as if the house had been breathing shallowly for decades. He set his keys on the counter. They made a dull clack, swallowed instantly by the air. No echo. Daniel frowned. Even small rooms should give something back. He walked through the cottage, testing each space. The living room, the narrow hallway, the bedroom with its slanted ceiling. All of them absorbed sound like thick fabric. He snapped his fingers. Nothing. He clapped once. The noise died before it reached the walls. He tried to laugh at himself. "You're tired," he muttered. "That's all." But the house didn't return even that whisper. He was unpacking dishes when he felt it, the sensation of being watched, a prickling at the back of his neck. He turned slowly. A black cat sat in the doorway. It hadn't made a sound. Not a footstep, not a breath. Just appeared, as if it had always been there, and he had only now noticed. Its fur was sleek, too sleek for a stray. Its eyes were a deep reflective amber, catching the dim light like polished stones. It didn't blink, it didn't move. It simply stared at him with a stillness that felt deliberate. "Hello," Daniel said, unsure why he whispered. The cat didn't react. He took a step toward it. The cat's tail twitched once, a slow, controlled motion. But it didn't retreat. It watched him with the patience of something that had all the time in the world. "Are you lost?" he asked. Still nothing. He crouched, extending a hand. The cat tilted its head slightly, as if studying the gesture, then turned and walked down the hallway. Its paws made no sound on the wooden floor. Daniel followed, more curious than cautious. The cat stopped at the far end of the hall, beside a patch of wall where the wallpaper had bubbled and peeled. It sat staring at the damaged section. "What is it?" Daniel asked. The cat didn't look at him. It kept its gaze fixed on the wall. He reached out and pressed his fingers against the peeling wallpaper. The wall felt colder here, almost damp. He pulled his hand back, frowning. The cat rose, brushed once against the wall, a slow, deliberate drag of its body, and then walked away without looking back. Daniel watched it disappear around the corner. A moment later, he heard it. A faint sound behind the plaster, tap, 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 like something small testing the inside of the wall. He held his breath, listening. The tapping stopped. The silence returned, thick and absolute. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Old pipes," he whispered. But the house didn't echo the lie back to him. Daniel woke before dawn, unsure what had stirred him. The cottage was still, the air unmoving. A faint gray light seeped through the curtains, outlining the room in soft, colorless shapes. For a moment he lay there, listening. Nothing. No birds, no wind, no distant cars. Just the thick, padded silence of the house. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. His breath felt loud in the stillness. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and froze. The cat sat in the doorway, exactly where it had been the night before. Its amber eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, unblinking, fixed on him with unnerving intensity. Daniel's pulse quickened. He hadn't left the door open. He was sure of it. He always closed doors out of habit. "How did you get in here?" he whispered. The cat didn't move. He stood slowly, expecting it to dart away. But it remained perfectly still, as if carved from obsidian. Daniel stepped closer, and the cat's pupils narrowed to thin slits. Not fear, calculation. He reached for the light switch. The bulb flickered once, then steadied. The cat didn't flinch. It simply watched him, its gaze so steady it felt like pressure. Daniel exhaled. "Okay, you win. Breakfast first." He walked past it, heading toward the kitchen. The cat followed, silent as a shadow. When he glanced back, it was already closer than he expected. Too close, as if it had moved without sound or motion. He shook off the unease and opened a can of tuna. The metallic scent filled the air. The cat sat by the table, tail curled neatly around its paws, waiting with unnatural patience. "You re a strange one," Daniel muttered. He set the bowl down. The cat didn't eat. It didn't even look at the food. It looked at him. Daniel frowned. Seriously. The cat blinked once, slow, deliberate. Then turned its head toward the hallway. Its ears twitched. Tap, tap, tap. The same faint sound from the night before. Daniel stiffened. The tapping came from the wall near the peeling wallpaper. The cat rose and walked toward it. Each step measured, precise. It sat again, staring at the wall as if waiting for something to answer. Daniel approached cautiously. The tapping stopped. He pressed his ear to the plaster. Silence. He pulled back. "Probably mice," he said, though the words felt thin. The cat looked up at him, and for a moment Daniel had the unsettling impression that it understood the lie. He stepped away from the wall. I'll call someone to check it out. The cat's tail flicked once. Daniel returned to the kitchen and stopped dead. The bowl of tuna was empty, completely empty. He hadn't heard the cat eat. He hadn't heard anything at all. He turned slowly. The cat was behind him again, sitting in the doorway, licking its paw with small, precise movements. Its eyes never left his. A chill crept up Daniel's spine. He checked the time. 6:12 a.m. Too early to call anyone about the walls. Too early to think clearly. He grabbed his jacket and stepped outside, needing air. The moment he closed the door, he realized something was wrong. The outside world had sound. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, a distant tractor hummed across a field. The contrast hit him like a physical blow. Inside the house, silence. Outside, life. He turned back toward the cottage. The windows reflected the pale morning light, dark and opaque. He could see inside. Behind one of the panes, a shape moved, a small black silhouette. Watching. Daniel swallowed hard. He wasn't sure when the cat had returned to the window. He wasn't sure how it had moved so quickly. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. It hadn't blinked once. By late afternoon, Daniel had convinced himself that the morning's unease was nothing more than nerves. New house, new routine, too much quiet. Anyone would feel unsettled. He made coffee, opened a window, and let the outside sounds drift in. Birds, wind, a dog barking somewhere far off. Normal life. But the moment he closed the window, the silence returned like a blanket thrown over his senses. He tried to ignore it. He unpacked books, arranged them on the shelves, and set up his laptop on the small desk by the living room window. The cat was nowhere to be seen, which should have been a relief. Instead, it made him feel exposed, as if the creature were watching from some unseen vantage point. He was sorting through a box of cables when he heard it again. Scratch, scratch. Not tapping this time, scratching, slow, deliberate, like claws dragging across wood. Daniel froze. The sound came from the hallway, the same section of wall where the wallpaper had bubbled. He set the cables down and walked toward it, each step measured. The scratching stopped. He waited. Silence. He pressed his palm against the plaster. Cold, damp. The wallpaper felt softer here, almost spongy. He pushed lightly and the surface gave under his fingers as if something beneath it shifted. A chill crawled up his spine. He stepped back. The cat appeared behind him. No sound, no warning. Just there, sitting in the middle of the hallway, its amber eyes fixed on him with unnerving intensity. Daniel exhaled shackily. "You scared me." The cat blinked once, slow and deliberate, then turned its gaze to the wall. Scratch, scratch. The sound resumed, louder now, more insistent. Daniel's breath caught. The cat's ears twitched, but it didn't move. It simply watched the wall, tail flicking in a slow, rhythmic pattern. "What is that?" Daniel whispered. The scratching grew faster, more frantic. Something inside the wall scraped upward, then sideways, then downward again, as if pacing in a narrow space. Daniel backed away. "Okay, definitely not pipes." The cat rose, walked to the wall, and pressed its nose against the peeling wallpaper. It inhaled deeply, then let out a low, rumbling sound, not quite a growl, not quite a purr. Something in between, something warning. The scratching stopped instantly. Daniel swallowed hard. "You scared it." The cat turned its head toward him. Its pupils were wide now, swallowing the amber. For a moment, Daniel felt pinned in place by that gaze, as if the cat were evaluating him, measuring him. Then it walked away, tail high, disappearing into the bedroom. Daniel stood alone in the hallway, staring at the wall. He should call someone. A pest control service, a contractor. Anyone who could explain what was happening inside the plaster, but the thought of bringing another person into the house made him uneasy. The silence felt too heavy, too watchful, as if the house itself resented the idea of outsiders. He forced himself to step closer again. He pressed his ear to the wall. Nothing. Just the thick, suffocating quiet. He pulled back and noticed something he hadn't seen before. At the base of the wall, where the floorboards met the plaster, a thin line of dust had been disturbed. A faint trail, as if something had pushed through it from the inside. Daniel crouched, heart pounding. He touched the floorboard. It shifted under his fingers, a loose board. He hesitated, then lifted it. The space beneath was dark, narrow, and deeper than it should have been. A cold draft rose from it, carrying a faint smell, earthy, metallic, wrong. He leaned closer. Something moved in the darkness. Daniel jerked back, slamming the board down. His breath came fast, shallow. He stumbled to his feet, backing away from the wall. From the bedroom doorway, the cat watched him, unblinking, as if it had been waiting for him to look. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined the loose floorboard shifting, imagined something pushing upward from the darkness beneath it. By dawn, he felt hollowed out, his nerves stretched thin. He needed answers. The village was small, a cluster of houses, a single grocery shop, and a pub that looked older than the road it sat on. The pub was open early, its door propped wide to let in the morning air. Daniel stepped inside, grateful for the noise, clinking glasses, low conversation, the scrape of chairs sound. Real sound. A few locals glanced up. Their expressions shifted when they recognized him, or rather when they recognized where he lived. A man behind the counter nodded. "You're the one renting the old Hargrove place." Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, just moved in." The bartender's face tightened. "Didn't know the owner was renting it again." Daniel hesitated. Why wouldn't he? The man wiped his hands on a towel, choosing his words carefully. "Last tenant didn't stay long." A woman at a nearby table snorted. "Didn't stay at all. Ran off in the middle of the night." Daniel turned to her. "Ran off? Why?" She leaned back, eyeing him with a mix of pity and curiosity. "Said the house was watching him." A cold weight settled in Daniel's stomach. The bartender shot her a warning look. "Don't start." "What?" "He should know," she said. "Place has a reputation." Daniel swallowed. "What kind of reputation?" The woman lowered her voice. "People hear things in the walls, feel things, like the house is paying attention." Daniel's pulse quickened. "Did the last tenant say anything else?" She nodded slowly. "Said he kept seeing a cat. Black one. Never blinked. Showed up everywhere he went." Daniel felt the hairs on his arms rise. The bartender sighed. "Look, it's an old house. Drafty, settles at night, makes noises, people spook themselves." The woman shook her head. "He wasn't spooked, he was terrified." Daniel forced his voice to stay steady. "What happened to him? No one knows," she said. "He left everything behind, clothes, furniture, even his car just vanished." The bartender cleared his throat loudly. "Enough. You're scaring the man." Daniel managed a weak smile. "I'm fine. Just curious." The woman leaned forward. "If you're smart, you won't stay there long." Daniel left the pub with more questions than answers. The morning sun felt too bright, too warm, as if mocking the cold dread settling in his chest. He walked back toward the cottage, each step heavier than the last. As he approached the house, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. The cat sat on the roof, perfectly still, perfectly balanced, its amber eyes locked onto him from above, unblinking. Daniel stopped in the middle of the path. The cat didn't move, didn't twitch, didn't blink, just watched. A chill crawled down his spine. He forced himself to keep walking, refusing to show fear. The cat tracked him with its gaze, its head turning slowly, mechanically, as he approached the door. Inside, the silence swallowed him whole. He closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. The house felt colder than before, as if it had been waiting for him. A soft sound drifted from the hallway. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Daniel's blood ran cold. The scratching was back, louder, closer. He turned toward the hallway and froze. The loose floorboard was rising. Something beneath it was pushing upward. And from the shadows at the end of the hall, the cat watched him, unblinking, waiting. Daniel didn't remember falling asleep. One moment he was sitting on the couch, staring at the hallway where the floorboard had risen. The next he was waking in darkness, heart pounding, unsure what had pulled him from unconsciousness. The house was silent. Not the natural quiet of night, but the thick, padded stillness he was beginning to dread. A silence that felt intentional, heavy. Listening, he sat up slowly. Something was wrong with the air. It felt warm, humid, as if the house had exhaled moments before he woke. Daniel rubbed his arms, trying to shake off the sensation. He reached for the lamp. It didn't turn on. He flicked the switch again. Nothing, the power was out. A faint glow seeped in from the hallway, moonlight filtering through the small window by the front door. It cast long, distorted shadows across the floor. Daniel stood, moving carefully. His bare feet touched the cold wood, and he winced. The temperature had dropped sharply, as if the house were holding its breath. He stepped into the hallway. The loose floorboard was flat again, perfectly flat, as if nothing had ever pushed from beneath it. Daniel crouched, hesitating. He reached out and pressed the board lightly. It didn't move. He pressed harder. Still nothing. A chill crawled up his spine. He straightened, scanning the hallway. That was when he noticed the cat. It sat at the far end of the hall, half hidden in shadow. Its eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the moonlight. It didn't blink, didn't twitch, just stared at him with that same unnerving stillness. Daniel swallowed. "What do you want?" The cat tilted its head slowly, as if considering the question. Then the walls exhaled. A long, low breath, warm and damp, rolled through the hallway, brushing against Daniel's skin like the touch of something alive. He stumbled back, heart hammering. The cat didn't move. The breath came again. This time the walls expanded, subtly but unmistakably. The wallpaper stretched, the plaster bulged, as if something inside the walls had inhaled deeply. Daniel pressed himself against the opposite wall, panic rising. No. The house inhaled again. The walls swelled. The floorboards creaked. The air thickened. And then the scratching returned. Not from one place, from everywhere. Above him, beneath the floorboards. Inside the walls, a chorus of frantic, desperate claws. Daniel clamped his hands over his ears, but the sound vibrated through the wood, through the plaster, through his bones. The cat rose slowly, its back arching, fur bristling. It let out a low, guttural sound, not a hiss, not a growl, but something deeper, a warning, a command. The scratching stopped instantly. The house fell silent. Daniel lowered his hands, trembling. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. He stared at the cat, chest tight. "What are you?" he whispered. The cat stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate. It walked past him, brushing against his leg with a cold, electric touch. Daniel flinched. The cat stopped beside the loose floorboard. It looked down, then up at him, then down again, as if giving him instructions. Daniel shook his head. "No, I'm not opening it." The cat's pupils narrowed to thin slits. The house inhaled. The floorboard rose. Just a fraction of an inch, but enough to show that something beneath it was pushing upward again. Daniel stumbled back, terror clawing at his throat. The cat sat beside the rising board, tail curling around its paws, waiting, inviting, as if the night had only just begun. Daniel didn't remember climbing the stairs. He had imagined everything. One moment he was in the hallway, staring at the rising floorboard. The next he was standing at the foot of the narrow staircase that led to the attic. His hand rested on the banister. His breath came in shallow bursts. His heart hammered against his ribs. The cat sat on the first step, waiting, inviting. Daniel shook his head. "Number I am not going up there." The cat blinked once, slow and deliberate, then turned and ascended the stairs. Daniel turned around, it was there. Its paws made no sound on the old wood. Halfway up, it stopped and looked back at him. Daniel felt the pull. Not physical, but something deeper. Something that tugged at the edges of his thoughts. The cat sat on the table, a pressure behind his eyes. A whisper he could quite hear. On the windowsill. He took a step. Fixed on him. Then another. He tried to read. The stairs creaked under his weight, but the sound died instantly. swallowed by the house.
By afternoon,
unnatural
Daniel's nerves
silence.
were frayed.
The air grew
"Stop it,"
colder
he
as he
snapped.
climbed, thick with
cat
dust
didn't
and
move.
something else.
"Stop
Something
watching
metallic
me."
like old blood.
The cat blinked once.
At the top of the
slow,
stairs, the
deliberate,
attic door stood
then
slightly
rose
ajar.
and walked out of the
The cat
room.
slipped inside.
Daniel exhaled
Daniel
shockily.
hesitated, hand trembling as he
you."
pushed the door open.
crash
The
echoed
attic was
from the
larger than
hallway.
he
He
expected,
jumped,
long, low,
heart
and cluttered
pounding.
with old furniture
He rushed
draped in
out
yellowed
and
sheets.
froze.
Moonlight
The hallway
filtered through a
closet
small
door was
circular
open.
window,
He
casting
hadn't
pale
opened it.
beams across
Inside,
the floor.
boxes were
Dust
toppled
motes
over.
drifted in the
Their
air like
contents
tiny
spilled
suspended
across the floor.
insects. The
Old
cat
coats
sat in
lay
the center
scattered.
of the room.
Hangers
Beside it
twisted.
lay a wooden
A stack
box.
of books
Daniel
overturned.
approached slowly,
The
each
cat
step
sat in
stirring the
middle of
dust.
nest, tail
The box
flicking
was
lazily.
older than the
Daniel's
house,
voice
judging by
trembled.
the hand.
"Why did you do
Carved
that?"
patterns
The cat
etched into its
tilted its
surface.
head.
Strange
nudged something
symbols
toward him with its
spiraled across
paw.
the lid,
A
worn
photograph.
smooth by time.
Daniel
He
crouched
knelt
slowly,
and lifted
dread
the lid.
coiling in his
Inside
stomach.
were
He
photographs,
picked up the photo. It
dozens
showed
of
the
them.
previous tenant.
All
The
of the
man
same
who
cat,
vanished,
different
standing in the same
decades,
hallway.
different
His smile was
owners,
strained, his
different
posture stiff.
houses.
And beside
But
him,
always
sitting
the same
perfectly
cat.
still, was the cat.
Identical markings,
The same
identical
cat.
eyes,
Daniel's
identical
breath
posture.
caught. He
In
flipped
some
the photo
photos,
over.
the people
date was
beside it
scrawled on the
smiled
back.
stiffly.
2 months
In
ago.
others, they
He
looked
looked up
exhausted,
sharply.
hollow,
The cat
afraid.
was gone.
Daniel S.
Daniel
breath
stood,
caught.
scanning
The
the hallway.
earliest photo
"Where
was
are
dated
you?"
1912.
A soft
The most
thump
recent
came
2
from the
months
bedroom.
ago.
He
The
moved
missing tenant,
cautiously,
Daniel,
each
flipped
step
through the
heavy.
stack, hands
The bedroom
shaking.
door was ajar.
The pattern
He
was
pushed it open.
unmistakable.
The cat sat
Every
on the
person
bed.
who lived in the house
Beside
had
it
been
lay his
photographed
phone.
with the cat. And in
The
every
screen was
photo,
cracked.
the cat looked exactly the
Daniel's stomach
same.
dropped. He
Unchanged,
picked up the phone,
unaging, watching.
hands shaking.
He reached the
screen
bottom of the
flickered,
box
then
and
died
froze.
completely. "You
A
broke
final
it," he
photograph
whispered.
lay beneath the
The
others.
cat's tail swished.
It showed the
Daniel
attic.
backed away.
This attic.
"Why? What do you want
The
from
angle
me?"
was identical to
The
where
cat
he now
rose slowly,
knelt.
stretching its
And
body
in the
a
center
long,
of the
deliberate
room,
motion.
sitting beside
Then
the
it jumped
wooden
off the
box,
bed and
was the
walked
cat.
toward the hallway.
But the person in the
Daniel
photo
followed.
wasn't Tihem.
Not because
it
he
was a
wanted
woman
to,
he
but
didn't.
because something in
T
the cat's
recognized.
posture demanded it.
Pale, gaunt,
The creature
eyes
moved
wide
with
with
the
terror.
confidence of something
Her hands
that
were
knew he
raised
would
as if
obey.
she were trying to shield
Led him
herself
to
from
the living
something
room.
behind the camera.
Stopped.
Daniel
Sat.
turned the photo
Stared
over.
at the wall.
A single
The
word
same
was
wall
scrawled
with
on the
the
back.
peeling
Run,
wallpaper.
his breath
Daniel
hitched.
shook his
The
head.
attic door
"No,
slammed
I'm
shut.
not opening it."
Daniel
The
spun
cat's
around,
ears twitched.
heart pounding.
The house inhaled.
The door
The
rattled
wallpaper
violently,
rippled.
as if something
A
on the
low,
other side were
resonant
trying to
sound
force its way
vibrated
in.
through
The walls
floorboards.
trembled,
Not
dust
scratching,
rained from the
not
rafters.
tapping,
The cat
but
rose
something
slowly.
deeper.
Its shadow
Something
stretched
alive.
across the floor,
Daniel
too
stumbled
long,
back.
too thin, bending at
"Stop.
impossible
Please
angles.
stop."
Daniel
The cat
backed
rose
away,
and walked
clutching the
toward him, slow,
photograph.
silent.
What
Predatory.
do you want from
Daniel
me?
backed into the
He
corner,
whispered.
heart
The
hammering.
cat tilted
The
its
cat
head.
sat at his
Then
feet,
the walls
looking up at
inhaled.
him with
A
those
deep,
amber
resonant
eyes
breath that
seemed
made
to
the
see
floorboards
everything.
vibrate beneath his
His
feet.
fear, his
The
confusion,
attic
his
seemed to pulse,
desperation.
expanding,
Then it did
contracting,
something it had never
as if the
done
house
before.
itself were alive,
It opened
hungry,
its mouth.
waiting.
Not to
The
meow,
cat stepped toward
not to
him,
hiss,
its eyes
but to
glowed
make a
brighter,
sound that
its
was
shadow writhed,
unmistakably
and
human,
Daniel
a
realized
whisper.
with a cold
Soft,
clarity that cut
breathless,
through his
familiar.
panic. The
"Help
cat
me."
was T, the
Daniel's
monster.
blood turned to ice.
It was the lure.
The voice was the same
house
one
was
he had
the
heard
predator,
in the pub. The
and he
missing
had just
tenant.
stepped
the
into
cat
its
closed
mouth.
its mouth. The house exhaled, and the loose floorboard rose again.
Daniel didn't too remember climbing the stairs. One moment he was in the hallway staring at the rising floorboard. The next he was standing at the foot of the narrow staircase that led to the attic. His hand rested on the banister. His breath came in shallow bursts. His heart hammered against his ribs. The cat sat on the first step, waiting, inviting. Daniel shook his head. "Number I am not going up there." The cat blinked once, slow and deliberate, then turned and ascended the stairs. Its paws made no sound on the old wood. Halfway up, it stopped and looked back at him. Daniel felt the pull. Not physical, but something deeper, something that tugged at the edges of his thoughts. A pressure behind his eyes. A whisper he could quite hear. He took a step. Then another. The stairs creaked under his weight, but the sound died instantly, swallowed by the house's unnatural silence. The air grew colder as he climbed, thick with dust and something else, something metallic like old blood. At the top of the stairs, the attic door stood slightly ajar. The cat slipped inside. Daniel hesitated, hand trembling as he pushed the door open. The attic was larger than he expected, long, low, and cluttered with old furniture draped in yellowed sheets. Moonlight filtered through a small circular window, casting pale beams across the floor. Dust motes drifted in the air like tiny suspended insects. The cat sat in the center of the room. Beside it lay a wooden box. Daniel approached slowly, each step stirring the dust. The box was older than the house, judging by the hand. Carved patterns etched into its surface. Strange symbols spiraled across the lid, worn smooth by time. He knelt and lifted the lid. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. All of the same cat, different decades, different owners, different houses. But always the same cat. Identical markings, identical eyes, identical posture. In some photos, the people beside it smiled stiffly. In others, they looked exhausted, hollow, afraid. Daniel's breath caught. The earliest photo was dated 1912, the most recent 2 months ago. The missing tenant, Daniel, flipped through the stack, hands shaking. The pattern was unmistakable. Every person who lived in the house had been photographed with the cat. And in every photo, the cat looked exactly the same, unchanged, unaging, watching. He reached the bottom of the box and froze. A final photograph lay beneath the others. It showed the attic. This attic, the angle was identical to where he now knelt. And in the center of the room, sitting beside the wooden box, was the cat. But the person in the photo wasn't him. It was a woman he didn't recognize. Pale, gaunt, eyes wide with terror. Her hands were raised as if she were trying to shield herself from something behind the camera. Daniel turned the photo over. A single word was scrawled on the back. Run. His breath hitched. The attic door slammed shut. Daniel spun around, heart pounding. The door rattled violently, as if something on the other side were trying to force its way in. The walls trembled. Dust rained from the rafters. The cat rose slowly. Its shadow stretched across the floor, too long, too thin, bending at impossible angles. Daniel backed away, clutching the photograph. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. The cat tilted its head. Then the walls inhaled. A deep, resonant breath that made the floorboards vibrate beneath his feet. The attic seemed to pulse, expanding, contracting, as if the house itself were alive, hungry, waiting. The cat stepped toward him. Its eyes glowed brighter, its shadow writhed. And Daniel realized, with a cold clarity that cut through his panic, the cat was the monster. It was the lure. The house was the predator, and he had just stepped into its mouth. Daniel stumbled down the attic stairs, clutching the photograph so tightly the edges cut into his palm. The house felt different now, heavier, as if the walls had thickened while he was upstairs. The air pressed against him, warm and damp, carrying a faint, rhythmic pulse. A heartbeat, not his. He reached the bottom of the stairs and froze. The cat sat in the hallway, waiting. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting something deeper than the moon. Something alive, something aware. Daniel backed away. "Stay away from me." The cat tilted its head. Then it opened its mouth. A voice spilled out, soft, trembling, unmistakably human. "Please, help me." Daniel's breath caught. No, that's not real." The cat stepped closer, its shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor. "Daniel." The voice whispered his name, spoken in the same voice he'd heard in the pub. The missing tenant's voice, thin and desperate. Daniel pressed himself against the wall. "Stop. Stop it." The cat's mouth closed. Silence. Then the walls inhaled, a deep, resonant breath that made the floorboards tremble beneath his feet. The wallpaper rippled, bulging outward as if something inside the walls were shifting, crawling, pressing against the plaster. Daniel stumbled backward, heart hammering. "What do you want from me?" The cat blinked slowly then. It spoke again, but this time the voice was different, higher, softer, a woman's voice. "Daniel, please, don't leave me." His blood ran cold. He knew that voice. He hadn't heard it in years. His sister, dead for over a decade. Daniel shook his head violently. "No, you can't. You can't sound like her." The cat stepped closer, its movement slow and deliberate. Its shadow writhed across the floor, bending at impossible angles. "Daniel," the voice whispered again, trembling with grief. "Why did you leave me?" He pressed his hands to his ears. "Stop it." But the voice wasn't coming from the cat anymore. It was coming from the walls, from the floor, from the ceiling. Whispers layered over whispers, dozens of voices overlapping, men, women, children, all calling his name, all pleading, all begging. "Help me, don't leave. Daniel, please. It hurts. Let me out." The house pulsed with sound, vibrating through the wood, through the plaster, through his bones. Daniel dropped to his knees, shaking. "Make it stop," he whispered. "Please, make it stop." The cat walked toward him, slow, silent, purposeful. It stopped inches from his face. Its pupils dilated until its eyes were nothing but black. Then it whispered in a voice that was not human at all, a voice that sounded like the house itself speaking through a narrow throat. "You're next." Daniel scrambled backward, slipping on the floor. He ran toward the front door, fumbling with the lock. His hands shook so violently he could barely turn the knob. The door wouldn't open. He pulled harder. It didn't budge. The wood beneath his fingers felt warm, pulsing, breathing. "Alive!" Daniel screamed and threw his shoulder against the door. Pain shot through him, but the door held firm. The house inhaled again, deeper this time, the walls expanding like lungs filling with air. The cat sat behind him. Watching, waiting, Daniel turned, chest heaving. "Why me?" The cat blinked. Then, in a voice that was unmistakably the missing tenant's, it whispered, "It chooses." The house exhaled. The lights flickered, and the loose floorboard in the hallway rose once more, higher than ever before. Something beneath it was pushing upward, something that wanted out. Daniel backed away from the rising floorboard, his breath coming in short, ragged bursts. The house felt smaller now, the hallway narrower, the ceiling lower, the air thicker. Every step he took seemed to sink into the floor as if the wood was softening beneath him. The cat sat beside the loose board, tail curled neatly around its paws. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting something deep and hungry. Daniel forced himself to move. He stumbled into the living room, grabbing his jacket, his keys, anything he could reach. He didn't care where he went. He just needed to get out. He reached the front door. The knob was warm. Too warm. He pulled. It didn't move. He pulled harder. The door felt soft beneath his fingers. Not like wood, but like thick, pliant flesh. His stomach twisted. He yanked with all his strength. The door pulsed. A slow, rhythmic throb. A heartbeat. Daniel stumbled back, choking on a cry. No, 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 the house inhaled. The walls expanded, the wallpaper stretching like skin pulled taut. The floorboards bowed upward, groaning under the pressure of something moving beneath them. The silence deepened. Not the absence of sound, but the consumption of it. Every noise Daniel made was swallowed instantly, devoured before it could echo. His breathing vanished into the air. His heartbeat felt muted inside his own chest. The house was eating the sound, feeding on it, feeding on him. A soft thump echoed behind him. Daniel turned slowly. The cat stood in the center of the room. Its shadow stretched across the floor, long, thin, branching like veins. The shadow pulsed in time with the house's breathing. Daniel backed away. "Stay away from me." The cat blinked. The house exhaled. A gust of warm, damp air rolled across the room, carrying a faint smell, earthy, metallic, rotten. Daniel gagged, covering his mouth. The cat stepped forward. Its paws made no sound. Its shadow crawled across the floor, reaching toward him like fingers. Daniel stumbled into the hallway. The floorboard shifted beneath his feet, rising and falling like the surface of a breathing creature. He grabbed the wall for balance and recoiled. The wallpaper was warm, soft. It pulsed beneath his hand. He jerked away, heart pounding. "Let me out." The house inhaled again, deeper, louder, the walls stretching outward as if preparing to swallow him whole. The scratching returned, not frantic this time, purposeful. Coordinated, dozens of claws dragging across wood in perfect unison, moving through the walls like a swarm. The sound vibrated through the floor, through the plaster, through Daniel's bones. The cat's mouth opened. A voice spilled out. Not human, not animal, but something in between. "You belong here." Daniel shook his head violently. "No, I'm leaving." He ran toward the back door. It wasn't there. The wall had shifted, smooth, seamless, as if the door had never existed. Panic surged through him. He turned toward the kitchen. The doorway was gone. The house was rearranging itself, closing around him, trapping him. The cat walked toward him, slow and deliberate. Its eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the pulsing walls. Its shadow writhed across the floor, reaching for him. Daniel backed into the corner, chest heaving. Please, please don't. The cat stopped inches from him. Its pupils dilated until its eyes were nothing but black. The house inhaled. The floorboard in the hallway rose higher, then snapped upward, splintering as something beneath it forced its way through. A hand, pale, thin, wrongly jointed. It clawed at the air, reaching for the open space. Daniel screamed, but the sound vanished instantly, devoured by the house. The cat turned its head toward the hallway. Its tail flicked once. As if giving permission, the hand pushed higher. Another hand emerged beside it. Then a face, not human, not anymore. The house exhaled, and the creature began to crawl out. Daniel stumbled backward as the creature pulled itself through the broken floorboard. Its limbs were too long, its joints bending in ways that defied anatomy. Its skin was pale and stretched thin, clinging to bone like wet paper. Its face, if it could be called a face, was a shifting mass of features, as if it had tried to remember what a human looked like and failed. The cat sat beside the opening, tail flicking slowly, rhythmically, directing, inviting. Daniel turned and ran. The hallway stretched before him, longer than it should have been. The walls pulsed with each breath the house took, narrowing, tightening, pushing him forward. He stumbled into the living room, or what had once been the living room. The furniture was gone. The windows were gone. The room had changed shape entirely. The walls curved inward, forming a long, narrowing corridor that led to a single door at the far end. A door he had never seen before. A door that hadn't existed. The house inhaled. The corridor lengthened. Behind him, the creature dragged itself fully into the hallway. Its limbs scraped against the floor, producing no sound. The silence devoured everything. Its head twisted toward him, features rearranging, searching for a shape that might frighten him most. It didn't need to try. Daniel ran. The corridor stretched with him, the door at the end receding like a mirage. The walls pulsed, warm and damp, brushing against his shoulders as he sprinted. The air thickened, clinging to his skin like a second layer. He reached the door. It had no handle. He slammed his fists against it. "Let me out." The house exhaled. The door dissolved beneath his hands, melting into the wall like wax under flame. Behind him, the creature crawled closer, its limbs bending, folding, unfolding. Its shadow stretched across the floor, reaching for him. The cat appeared beside him, silent, still watching. Daniel pressed himself against the wall. "Why me? Why are you doing this?" The cat blinked. Then, in a voice that was not human, not animal, but something ancient and hollow, it whispered, "You were alone." The house inhaled. The floor beneath Daniel softened, sagging like wet clay. He stumbled, sinking to his knees. The wood rippled beneath him, forming grooves, channels, shapes, a pattern he recognized from the attic box. A spiral, a mouth. The house was opening. The creature reached him. Its hand, cold, thin, impossibly strong, closed around his ankle. Daniel screamed, but the sound vanished instantly, devoured by the silence. He clawed at the floor, but the wood gave way beneath his fingers, soft and yielding. The cat stepped closer. Its shadow merged with the creature's. The house exhaled. The floor split open. Daniel fell. He plunged into darkness, warm, suffocating, alive. The walls closed around him, pressing against his skin, his chest, his throat. He tried to scream again, but the silence swallowed the sound before it left his mouth. Above him, the opening sealed. The last thing he saw was the cat's face peering down at him, its amber eyes glowing faintly in the darkness, unblinking, patient, satisfied. Then the darkness swallowed him whole. The house inhaled. The walls pulsed, and somewhere deep within the structure, a new sound began, faint at first, then growing stronger. Scratching. Slow. Deliberate. Rhythmic. A new voice joined the chorus inside the walls. Daniel's voice, begging, pleading, calling for help that would never come. The house exhaled. The cat walked down the hallway, tail held high, its shadow stretching across the floor like a living thread. It paused at the front door, now perfectly ordinary again, and sat, waiting, watching, listening for the next tenant, the next footstep, the next life to feed the silence. The house was hungry, and the cat was its herald.